Hey folks, it's Eugene. Welcome to another tutorial video. Today what I'm going to be doing is going through the interface of the latest Cloudcompare release. Now, I've done some videos on Cloudcompare before. I did them years ago. Actually, I just noticed that it was 10 years almost that I released one of the first Cloudcompare videos. And, well, it's been doing really well. A lot of people have been viewing it. And you can see if you go to my YouTube channel, the 3D Forensics channel, and go under playlists, if you go to view the full playlist for Cloudcompare, there's a whole bunch of videos here. Now, the one that's really taken off is the introduction. So let's see if we can find that one. There it is. Tutorial introductory video on Cloudcompare. So that was 285,000 views. Now, it was only 11 minutes long. It's gotten a lot of views and stuff. But one of the things that's been coming up recently is that people want to get into Cloudcompare. I know that they hear about it and they often will download the program and then open it up and they see a lot of buttons. And when they see all those buttons, it gets really overwhelming. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk people through the interface and such so they don't get lost. Now, if you're going to download Cloudcompare because you haven't downloaded it yet, all you have to do is just go and do a search for Cloudcompare, and you'll see it comes up here. Go to the downloads page, and I am using the 2.13 beta. So that's this guy right here because I'm using Windows. So when you hover over this little icon or window here thing, it flips over. If you go to the installer version, you just download it, install it like a regular Windows program, and you're absolutely fine. Now, there's other versions here, but if you want the stable release, it would be these here. And you can see that, you know, there's Mac, there is Linux, so Windows 64 bits, whatever. And there's some other things too, like the Cloudcompare viewer and that sort of thing. I'm not going to get into that. I'm using the latest one because once that goes to production and it's finally released, it'll probably be the latest and greatest. And I've already noticed there's a few extra little goodies in there. So all you have to do, click, download, install, and then we get to here. So people get to this window here and they're like, oh my God, look at all of these buttons. What am I going to do here? And don't worry, I'm going to walk you through it all. And I've run through the same thing with a lot of different programs. So first things first, let's look at the real estate and the way that it's broken out. So what we have here is the main 3D window. Okay, so that's this guy right here. Then we have what's called the database tree. So that is pretty much a listing of all the different things that you have loaded. So if you load a point cloud, a mesh, whatever you have loaded, they will all be listed here. And any item that you click on here will be listed in the properties. Okay, so here, this window here where the database tree is, that's going to be a really important window. And you can drag these windows around and, you know, do different things. Okay, so now the properties is on the top. Maybe I want it on the bottom, so I want to put it down here. Usually, you know, you want to maximize your real estate here, just depending on how many things you've got in the database tree. Down here is the console. So basically it's like a log of all the different things that you do. So if you import a file, if you perform a function on it or something, a lot of the items get recorded down here. And so you can always go back. You can kind of like scroll down and scroll up and see a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, so that's what that is there. As far as all these buttons go on the left, on the top, okay, we're going to break this down a little bit, and I can already see there's some new things that I even haven't seen before. I literally just installed this. Like here, there's a little button here. There's more stuff here. So we'll take a look at these too and see what the heck is going on there. A couple of new things down here, so that's pretty interesting. This is not going to be like a how-to. This is more about getting introduced to the interface and where to find certain things and how to do certain things. Okay, so stand by here. So let's start on the left here and we will go down. So this first icon that's right here, okay, display settings. So these are all your colors here. And if you look here, these are your lighting. This is your default materials. These are your colors. I like a black background, so that's what I'm keeping here. Sometimes when you open up Cloudcompare for the first time, you'll see it's got kind of this bluish gradient here. If you want to shut that off and just get a solid background like I do, just go ahead and do that. The color scale, that's for something else. Okay, so that's when you start doing a different type of analysis. There's a little histogram that shows up on the side. Don't worry about that right now. I would say that's a more advanced feature. It's not something you're going to get into right away. Labels are for, you know, when you click on something and it tells you the XYZ coordinates, there's like little boxes and stuff that show up. So you can do different things here. You can choose the color of the box kind of thing, and even the font size. So if you have, if you want to see larger font sizes, you can increase this if you want, and even the marker size, that's the actual label that's there. They can become bigger or smaller. You can make it opaque. So that's what that's all about. And then there's other options. So down here, the default font size, you know, decimation and stuff like that for performance. And down here, you know, some different options here with respect to, you know, showing middle cross on the screen. What else? Automatically display normals at loading. So I'm going to shut these off. I'm just going to keep the defaults. Okay. You don't need to worry about this, but these are the display settings. The next one down is actually your camera settings. So now let's bring in something here. And I think what's happening is there's nothing loaded here, so nothing's happening. So it's probably confusing. Let's go ahead and open. So basically there's a little file here. So you see there's the open, there's save. Okay, these two, it's just like going file, open, or file, and then you can save. It's grayed out right now because I don't have anything loaded. So I'm going to go ahead and open, and I'm just going to bring in just a model. Any model here is fine. So this is something I did a while back. I think this was in Croatia, and it's you know, a couple of what do you call it, sarcophagus or sarcophagi, and you can see it here. So it's loaded. You can see it's in the database tree, and if I click on the point cloud, okay, you'll see that I get some properties here. So you know, when I click on certain things, I get different properties, right? So there's the point cloud. So that's what I was talking about before. Now let's see here. That was the display. I just want to see if this works here. Show middle cross, apply. So if I go, yeah, I don't see it right now. I'm not sure what's going on. Okay, so that's kind of weird. It's not showing the middle cross. I may have to restart the program maybe to get it to go. But let's uncheck that because I normally don't use that anyway. Okay, but let's go to the camera. So the camera settings here tell you some different things about the position of the camera. So for example, it's got X1, Y2, and Z3. It's got some different angles. You'll see that if I change these, if I slide them around, okay, it looks like the model is moving, okay, but that's not what's happening. We're actually moving the camera. The camera's moving around. So that thing is stationary. We're just flying around it based on these particular angles here, okay? So that's what that's doing. There are some other things like the rotation center of the camera and that sort of thing. Okay, there's also the horizontal field of view that's here. So if you want a wider field of view, you can turn this to 90, and you'll see that when I zoom in, it looks a little bit different. Okay, see how it looks a little bit more stretched now, and that's just has to do with the field of view. The one-to-one here is basically like a global zoom. So if I click on that, it just zooms everything. Now, one-to-one means if there were 4 or 5 or 6 different things loaded and I click that, it's going to zoom everything, okay? All the different point clouds and such are going to be in view. But because I only have one right now, it's basically just doing the one, so no big deal. This here is the pick rotation center. So if I click on that and I click on a point in the model, and you just give it a second here, you'll see that when I rotate now, it's rotating around that point. Now I'm going to turn something on here. Okay, you'll see that when I rotate now, it rotates around this little gizmo here. So let's do it again. I'm going to click on that, click on this side, and now I'm rotating about that point. So that's the rotation center. There's an auto function for the rotation center. I don't bother with it. I prefer to choose it myself. And there is a little shortcut here. If you double click, okay, on the model, you'll see that anywhere you double click, it basically resets the rotation point there. Okay, so that's a little trick you can keep in your back pocket. This here is for leveling something with 3 clicks. So for example, if this surface wasn't level, I could click 1, 2, 3 and it would level it. I'm not going to bother with that right now. This one here is important. This is the current view mode. So for example, if I go to a top-down view, so these are all right here are all default views. So there's top, there's front, there's side, and things like that. So if I go to a top-down view, okay, you'll see that I've got this kind of view here. Now I'm looking at it in perspective mode. So here it says object-centered perspective. And I know I'm in perspective mode because if this is perfectly top-down, I can see the inside of the walls here. And that's because perspective mode is basically how we see. So things that are closer to me are larger and things that are farther away are smaller. Now, if I change that to orthographic, if I do that, you'll see that I can't see the insides of the walls anymore, right? They disappeared. And they're there, they're just, I'm looking at it square on, so I'm not looking at the perspective effect anymore. So this mode, these two different modes can be helpful depending on what it is that you're doing. Now there's this other mode, it's viewer-based perspective. I don't use this, I don't like it. And the reason is, when you start rotating, you'll see that it rotates around me, it rotates around the viewer, so it's the viewer-based. And I don't really like that, I prefer the object-based. So if I go back and I go to object-centered, Okay, it's like this. It moves the object around, and it's just a little bit more predictable in terms of manipulation and navigating around a particular model. All right, the next one down, always visible, rotation, never visible. So this has to do with the gizmo. If I go always visible, you'll see that it's always there, okay? It never disappears. Some people like to use it in rotation only, so this way when you move, it shows up and then it disappears. I often just shut it off. I kind of understand what it's doing, so it's not that helpful to me to see it, and it's just a little bit cleaner on the screen. So depending on your preference, keep it on, put on rotation only, whatever you like. This here is a zoom and center. So if I click on this, it just centers on the point cloud. Now, if I had 4 or 5 things loaded here and I clicked on the zoom button, whatever I have selected gets zoomed. So in fact, let's do a little something here. Let me bring up another model. Oh, I don't know. Let's see here. Maybe this Impala. Sure, why not? Okay, so I got this other thing here. So if I click on that and then I hit zoom, okay, you see it centers on that. If I click on the other model and I go ahead and zoom, okay, it now centers that one. Now the global zoom, if I click on that one, if I go back again, okay, now it centers for both. Okay, so that's kind of how that works. And of course I just talked about these are all the default views, front, side, like this, and then there's a couple of isometric views. So it basically looks at it from 45 degrees from each angle. So you'll see here there's one view, and then here it kind of flips it to the other view in a perspective mode, which is fine. Down here is like a stereo thing. Don't worry about that. I haven't used that in a while, and don't plan to anytime soon. Okay, let me shut one of these off. So you'll see here there's a whole bunch of little check boxes. So if I click on one of these, I can turn things off and on, just like that. Okay, off and on. And here, off and on. Now when I uncheck this one here, everything underneath this will shut off. But if I had 2 or 3 things here and I just shut off the point cloud, the other things remain on. But in this case we only have one, so it just shuts off either way, but that's something that you can do too. All right, let's see what else we got to do here. So you can see we've got our console here. Now you can close this. Okay, sometimes if you want a bit more real estate, you can close it, and the shortcut for that is just F8. So if I click on F8, it just pops off and on, and I can cycle through that no problem. Okay, let's start going across the top here and see what we've got going on. So I'm going to shut off the let's shut off the Chevy here, and let's work back with just this model right here. And you'll see the first one here, it says point picking. So point picking gives you information about all the different points. Okay, so I've got this selected right now, and in Cloudcompare it's important to have things selected, or if you're going to be performing an operation, you click on what it is that you want to measure, let's say. So I want to do this. I'm going to click on this. Probably one of the most important features. Well, the first one here is just point information. If I click anywhere, you'll see it gives me information about that point. Okay, click, click, click. I got a whole bunch of information, but probably the one that everybody looks at most is the distance. So if you click on that and then you click 2 points, so if I click there and I click there, okay, let me try that again. There we go. I got a distance, okay? So it gives me 4.829. This is in meters, so I can click, and basically you get a distance here. Okay, so there's other options here. I'm not going to go through them all. This is mostly about the interface, so it doesn't scare people away. This one here is what's called the pointless picking. So it's kind of similar, not quite, but basically if you click on this, it's kind of like doing a virtual survey. Okay, you can see that it's keeping a record of all the different points here. So that can be useful in some cases. There's this polyline function, so that allows you to draw polylines. So if I just go click, click, okay, I'm just going to do the outline very quickly, and then something like this, maybe like this, and then that's it. So I've got this polyline now, and if I save it with the check mark here, okay, and I shut off the sarcophagus, then you can see I've got the polyline right there. Okay, the next one has to do with cloning. Okay, so if I want to make a copy of this, I can hit the clone. If I have 2 point clouds, this one, I'm going to hold down the control key now and click on this other one. You can merge things together, merge multiple clouds. Okay, I'm not going to do that right now. This one here is for deleting. So anything that I have selected would get deleted. So if I want to get rid of the Chev Impala, I just click this, it will delete. Then I have some registration tools. Okay, there's a bunch of like analysis type stuff over here. So This one here is a point picking alignment between two point clouds. This is fine alignment, and then there's some other tools that allow you to optimize a point cloud, let's say. So for here, you can reduce the density of a point cloud here by subsampling. There is this one here, it's sampling points on a mesh, and then we start getting into some of the analysis tools, computing cloud-to-cloud distance and such, okay? So I'm not going to get into these because it would just take too long. Okay, but these are some basic tools here. This is for registration and for optimizing point clouds and doing some analysis. There's some other things here. Here it says convert a cloud to a 2D raster, so I'm not really going to be working on that. Primitive factory is a way that you can create primitives like boxes and spheres and things like that. Okay. SOR, so that's basically a statistical outlier removal. It's basically removing noise. So if there's any noise in the point cloud, there's a way to get that out. Now these two, segment and translation, these are important. I've got videos on these already, so there's no sense in me going over them too much again. But basically here, this segment, this here will allow you to edit a point cloud. If you want to cut things out, if you want to clean things out, it allows you to do that manually. Okay, so if I click on that and I just do a very quick one, right? So I go click, 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 like that. Okay, and I've got this little section. Basically, I can get rid of it. Okay, actually I got the wrong thing selected here, so I see what's going on. So remember I said make sure you got the right thing selected? There we go. Now I got the right thing selected. And I'll go again, just do a little section like that, and then I'll go out, and there you go. You see it's missing. Okay, so you can, there's a way that you can do stuff like that and clean up your point cloud. This one here is your translation. You can manually move the point cloud. So right now it may be in a certain location in the coordinate system. I could take this and I can move it higher, lower. I can rotate it around. I can do a whole bunch of things with this particular one. This one is for creating cross sections. It works great on vehicles. So if you have a car and you want to sort of slice it in half or something like that, you can do that. This one here is a way of getting polylines. Not going to go over that one too much. A bunch of stuff here has to do with the, see here it says histogram. There's not going to be really any histogram until you have like what's called a scalar field. Okay, and I don't have one here, and I think that'll be the subject for another video. But basically it has to do with displaying certain features of a point cloud and how you want them colorized and things like that. Okay, so that's what these tools are here. There's a scalar field thing. You can add a scalar field, a bunch of things you can do here. Now over here you can see it says classifiers. Okay, so that's a way of training an algorithm to sort of detect certain things in a point cloud. So let's say you want to detect a roadway and trees or buildings and things like that. There's a way that you can do that with this. Okay, there's a whole bunch of other little plugins and things like that. You can see here, there's a lot of people who write software and plugins for Cloudcompare, okay, like little things. You can see here it's detect planar facets, stuff like that. Fast global registration, right? There's a whole bunch of stuff here that's totally useful. So these are a whole bunch of little plugins. And this is a new one here too. So I haven't seen this one here, but it says train classifier. Let's go down one. What does this say? It's got this little settings thing. And that might be just a little menu thing. Train setting. Yeah, it looks like. Multi-class classification. So there's some more classification stuff here for point clouds. Not going to get into it, otherwise it's going to get overwhelming here. Coming down on this side, these are also a whole number of plugins, but some of them are like really, really useful. So up here, if you click on this, it says remove filter. So if you have a certain filter that's on, you can remove that here. It's the lighting filters and stuff like iDome lighting. You see what it kind of like gives me this weird kind of look. So if I just click on that, it removes the visibility filter. This is another type of filter, okay, that you can put on, and I can just shut it off with this one here. No big deal. This is an animation tool. So Cloudcompare does actually really great animations. And if you want to create a little animation of this thing, again, I've got a video on this you can look at. That's what this is here. This is the clean virtual broom, often called the sweeper plugin. So if you are scanning a roadway and there are cars driving by, you get a lot of noise that are floating above the roadway. This is a quick way to clean it up manually just by using like this virtual broom. You can see here virtual compass. This one here, the cloth simulation filter, this is one that I've used before, also used for, it's a great way to separate the ground from things that are above the ground, whether it's trees or cars and things like that. and a whole bunch of other things. I'm not going to get too much into these, but there's like meshing functions. There's something called the Ellipser app that you can convert a photograph into a point cloud and do some different things. And there's a couple of new ones down here. So I hadn't seen these before. So here it says a 3D graph-based individual tree isolator for terrestrial laser scanning point clouds. So that's kind of cool. There's some things there. Maybe it can isolate things there. Perform normal distance measurement against the plane. So let's say, for example, you wanted to know how flat your concrete floor is. Maybe you could click on that and then it will determine, how much it deviates from a plane. So that is pretty much all I'm going to get into, okay? But the basics are really just, a lot of people will bring a point cloud in and they just want to take measurements. So you want to use the point picking over here. If you have to do any editing, you want to use the segment tool. If you want to move it around manually, you want to use the translation tool. And then you have all your different views. You can set up your cameras. The animation plugin is here. And yeah, there's a whole bunch of things going on with Cloudcompare. But this is the latest interface. And like I said, if you just go through it and kind of think of it, on the left here, it's kind of like your views and navigation kind of thing. Across the top here are a lot of the most common tools that you're going to be using for measuring, for cloning, for editing, for deleting, for doing registration, different types of analysis when you're comparing things together. That's all here. Again, segment tool, translate tool, scalar fields. That's when you're doing the different types of analysis. That's when this becomes important. Again, it's a little bit more advanced right now, so don't worry too much about it. And then these are a whole bunch of plugins here. Okay, things for filtering, for cutting, for isolating. This is the this is by color. So for example, if you want to separate a point cloud into two based on color, so maybe you've got green trees and you've got white walls or red bricks or something, you can separate it based on color. Down here, a lot of other plugins that people have written, and they get added. And you can see as time goes on, it's getting a little tight on space. There's only a little bit more room down here for a few more icons, but I imagine that eventually it's going to have to get organized into some different menus and sort of bundle up and organized a little bit better. So anyway, so let's leave it at that. That's the Cloudcompare interface. Nothing to be afraid of. Yes, there's a lot of buttons, but there's usually the buttons that you need are the ones that are over here for navigation, and just this little part right here will do a whole heck of a lot for you. Okay, folks, take care, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.